Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about how to solve quadratic equation. Now previously you have already learned how to factorize quadratic equations. So for example, if I have an equation like this, x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0, then I can already factorize it into the two brackets. So it becomes x plus 2 and x plus 4 equals 0. If you're not sure how to factorize, then please go back and have a look at the factorizing video. So now that we have factorized the quadratic equation into two brackets, you can then solve it using the null factor theorem. The null factor theorem states that when a times b equals 0, a and b can just be any two numbers, then so if a times b equals 0, then either a equals 0 or b equals 0. So basically, if you have two numbers that multiply together to give you 0, then one of them has to be 0 for that to happen. So applying that theorem to this equation, let's say this first bracket is a and the second bracket is b, then what we can do is say either x plus 2 is equal to 0 or x plus 4 is equal to 0. Now if x plus 2 is equal to 0 and we minus 2 on both sides, it becomes x equals negative 2. And if x plus 4 is equal to 0 and we minus 4 on both sides, we get x equals negative 4. So we have solved this equation. How do we know that these are the answers? Well, let's substitute these numbers back into our original equation and see what happens. So we have x squared plus 6x plus 8 is equal to 0. Let's substitute negative 2 into the equation. So we have negative 2 squared plus 6 times negative 2 plus 8 is equal to 0. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12 plus 8. Typing this in the calculator is indeed equal to 0. So we have done the check. Now let's check with our second one. Put negative 4 into x. So we have negative 4 squared. Negative 4 in bracket squared plus 6 times negative 4 plus 8 is equal to 0. So that's 16 plus negative 24 plus 8. And 16 plus 8 is 24 minus 24 is 0 again. So that proves, so this is the check that we have just done. The checking also proves that the answers are x equals negative 2 or x equals negative 4. Both of these are correct answers. Now I want to show you another way of solving quadratic equations, and that is using the quadratic formula. So let's just copy down this equation. So I'll show you that using the other way you can also get the same answer. Oops. So our equation was x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0. Now the quadratic formula, hang on a second. Quadratic formula states that when ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, so a, b, and c are just three numbers, any numbers, then x equals negative b plus or minus, so there are two possible answers, that's why it's plus or minus, b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2a. Now, how did someone figure this out? Well, basically they rearranged this equation to make x the subject, and rearranging this required a little bit of completing the square, which we taught you in the other lessons. So substituting the numbers into this formula, we can see that in our equation we have a is equal to 1, b is equal to 6, and c is equal to 8 from our quadratic equation. So substituting those numbers into our formula, we can see that it's negative 6 plus or minus b squared, so that's 6 squared, which is 36, minus 4 times 1 times 8 over 2 times 1, so that's equal to negative 6 plus or minus square root of 36 minus 4 times 8 is 30. 4 times 8 is 32. 36 minus 32 is 4 over 2. So that's negative 6 plus square root of 4 is 2 over 2, or negative 6 minus 2 over 2. Right, because we have plus and minus there, so we separated it into two separate answers. So negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. And then, or negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8, divided by 2 is negative 4. So these are our answers. So as you can see, using both the quadratic formula and by factorizing, you would arrive at the same answer. Now the quadratic formula is useful because with factorizing you have to think of numbers in your head that multiply together to give you certain combinations, whereas the quadratic formula, you can just follow the formula and it works for you to get the answers in the end. So thanks for watching, see you next time.